Margaret coming, yay.
Hi, Marg.
Hey.
We'll wait for her to pop in all the way and then are we good?
So I was just listening to Christmas carols, so I'm like,
Gotta do it while you can. It's that time of year.
I know. Kim, are you at the church?
I am. Yeah, I work. Tuesday's my long day.
Apparently.
Yeah. Well, I just decided to stay because, I mean, you'd probably hear some sort of, cartoon or crash or bang at my house. So this was a quieter place at this point. So, but hey, Mar, do we have your video?
I don't know why it's not working.
Hey, Margaret.
Hello, everyone.
Well, we can go ahead and get started. I am Jessi Sigander, and my background is as an educator, and I own my own business working with people who are struggling with trauma, anxiety, and dyslexia.
And my name's Benedict, and I am a counselor. I work a lot with kiddos, but also adults and families, and I work as a parent coach as well. So working on just helping families with all of the, so they can be happier families, I guess, is the way to put it. So yeah.
And we put our heads together and realized that, especially during COVID, there is a huge need to support families socially and emotionally right now. It is a stressful time for everybody. And so we launched Action Parenting, and we support the social and emotional needs of families, of parents. We go into schools and help teach social and emotional curriculum to the teachers and do professional development with them as well. And we are super excited to be here tonight and just talk about anxiety, because my goodness, it is everywhere, and hopefully give you guys some tools that you can take away and apply in your life today.
Yeah. Thank you. So with it being, this group and stuff, we would love to make this interactive. So we want to make sure that you guys have opportunity to not just sit here and listen to us talk, because that gets really boring. And we also know, just hearing some of your own backgrounds and stuff as you guys have popped in, it sounds like we have a lot of wealth and wisdom here just within the group. And so and I think that's kind of the principle of Action Parenting. One of the things that we really believe is that we are not meant to do this alone. That community is really important. And so we want to honor that community that we have and all of our shared experiences, because we can all learn from each other.
So we're just going to start it off with kind of a question I'd love to hear from each one of you. When you hear the word anxiety, what is the first thing that comes to your mind?
Fretting.
Fretting. Okay. Good. What else?
For me, illness.
Illness.
Fear.
Fear.
I'm going to shut my door just once.
Tension.
Tension. Yep.
Fear.
Fear.
Confusion.
It's a good one.
I think from I take care of my grandkids during the week, during the day, and I think for them, when I hear that word, I hear like a nervousness, lack of confidence. Not that they say that, but everyone's kind of talking about it now, and you're seeing it in them. Yeah. Uneasiness, instability. Sorry, I'll just keep talking.
No.
Shut me up anytime, you guys.
You're saying, but
We have been in isolation down here. I'm sorry.
No, I think we all can relate to all of those words.
It's like loneliness too. Isolation.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I ask a quick question? Is it Olivia or Rachel that's joining us here? They're on mute.
Hi, I'm Olivia, but my mom and I are both here. My
Oh,
mom-
good. We don't have a video. Do you want to press your video thing? We don't have your cute faces.
We're in our pajamas.
Well, so is Joanne Houck, so it's okay.
Listen, my hair's wet. I'm in my pajamas. Come on.
I'm totally fine
I
with
am
the
too.
tour.
Yeah.
Well,
I kind of
There you go. Hi. Awesome. Oh, Rachel, I just love you. And who's joining us from the phone?
I'm on my laptop.
Hi,
Oh,
Okay.
my name is Mika, and my aunt, Lisa Wagner, do you guys
yes.
know
Oh, yes, of
So-
Yes.
course.
Okay,
She-
awesome.
her? She texted me this link because I was talking to her last night about my daughter and some of her anxious I have a lot of anxiety, and so I noticed some things on her, and I'm feeling more anxious because I feel like I'm causing this anxiety in my child. So
Yeah.
Well, welcome, Mika. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Kim,
Yes.
is there a way I can see everybody that's coming on?
Yes. If you go to the top of your screen, and it says speaker view on the top right-hand corner, hit the gallery view. Can you do that?
Yeah.
Does
I
that
don't wanna
work
be the
for
only
you?
one in yeah, I don't want to be the only one in my pajamas.
There we go. Can everybody see what they need to see now?
Yeah, we got one more.
Still don't see Margaret, but
I can't figure it out, guys. Sorry.
Fine, it's
okay,
Zoom.
no worries, Margaret.
I was there, Margaret.
Oh,
then-
here's Mary joining us too.
Yay.
Oh, hi, Mary.
Hi.
Sorry for the confusion, my friend.
That's okay. I should have prepared myself beforehand.
No worries. No worries. Hey, Jessi, would you like us all to mute ourselves? And then we can or you can do a full mute until you ask for questions, or how do you want to do that?
I imagine if we all mute ourselves until you are going to say something, that will help with a bandwidth for
Right.
everybody to not be jumping in and out and all that.
Okay, so why don't we all do that? And then if you've got a question, there you are. And then if you've got a question, maybe when it's time, you can just, wave and we can go that way. Does that sound okay, ladies?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yep.
I'm gonna mute myself.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. And if we talk over each other and all that, we'll just do it. So so you guys were talking a lot about, and I just think I heard somebody saying a lot of times we notice anxiety in ourselves and we start to see it in our kids, and is there a relationship between that, and is there a correlation and stuff? So we thought we'd start with, and Jess is going to talk about what does anxiety look like, and really talking about and paying attention to the different ages and some things that maybe might surprise you that are actually anxiety.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. So we know that anxiety looks different in a littler kid. So if you have a preschooler, than it does in a teenager, than it does in you. And so to some extent, anxiety is normal, right? When we've got a little kiddo and they're afraid of the dark, that's a normal fear. So some of it is developmental, and we want to make sure that people know that. When they're really little, fear of loud noises, all of that kind of stuff is just really normal developmental stuff. But there's also a point where there's a tipping point where we begin to go, okay, it's probably not just a normal fear. It's probably moving into anxiety. So there's a lot of things that it can look like in a littler kid. It can look like extreme meltdowns. Oftentimes they don't always have the words to express how they're feeling, or they don't have the vocabulary to tell us what they're anxious about. And so when we look at their behavior, if we get these big emotions and these big meltdowns, oftentimes that can be a sign of anxiety, or a sign of frustration that something's going on. It can be, overthinking situations. So if you've got that second grader that turned in that assignment and they are so worried that it was not done well and they didn't do it right, and they can kind of replay it over and over and over again, or a conversation that they had with a friend, sometimes that is anxiety. That's the need for perfectionism. And younger kids can sometimes be anxiety. Sometimes it's a struggle with sleep. when they're little and they have a hard time going to bed at night and calming their brains and their bodies down. For sure that can be it. Sometimes it can be, you know, headaches or stomach aches, you know, repeated patterns of that over and over again, that we see in littler kids. Sometimes it's, you know, maybe that 6 or 7 or 8-year-old that's just imagines everything that could go wrong. Sometimes that's an underlying, that anxiety is there. When we think about older kids, one of the things that I think we don't often think about is we see some of those same big emotions around anxiety, but another one that we might not think about is withdrawal. So if you have that kiddo that goes to their room and shuts the door and kind of just turns off, that can definitely be anxiety because they're actually shutting down and shutting the world out. It can be repeated patterns. So if you've got a kiddo that wants to repeat a pattern over and over and over again, that need for control, that need to regulate the situation, can definitely be anxiety. It can be the like keyed up feeling. It can be like restlessness. We can see like, again, you know, frequent headaches, excessive fatigue, which is harder when they're teenagers because as they get older, we see more of that anyhow. But it's the kids that don't necessarily want to get out of bed, or they're avoiding assignments, or they're avoiding logging into a class, or they're avoiding going to certain places. So we see avoidance in those places. A change in eating habits can also be, you know, kind of a trigger or an idea that something might be going on. So those are some of the things that ways we might see anxiety in kids. Oftentimes we think about anxiety as worry, right? But it comes out in lots of different places. So as an adult, it can look really interesting. It can be shutting down. It can be a constant replaying in your mind of, did I do that right? Did I do that right? Did I do that right? What if I didn't do that right? It can be a difficulty making decisions. We as parents, sometimes I think we get really stuck in making decisions, and that can actually be this anxiety, this underlying worry underneath. It can look like a lot of perfectionism. It can look like really harsh judgment of ourselves. Maybe this feeling of always feeling on the edge. And then we see it in just our physically, like we can see it in like a shortness of breath or a tightness in our chest, or, you know, headaches or stuff like that. All of those it can be triggered by anxiety. So it's not just a worry. It comes out in different spaces in our life. And sometimes I think we don't even know that we have anxiety, right? Because we're displaying a behavior and there's actually anxiety underneath that. That's trying to tell us something about what we're worried about or the world around us.
Yeah. And something, and I just as you were speaking, Jess, I was thinking too that sometimes like you can notice it after maybe a traumatic situation. So that's why, yes, we're seeing a rise here with, you know, all of us as worldwide with the, you know, changes in our lives with COVID and everything are experiencing a lot of changes. So we're seeing some like a rise in it. But I think there was a question that was submitted about like it, but it seems to have been on a rise and kind of like in with like the ADHD diagnoses, autism, and a lot of correlation with like OCD and all of those. And a lot of times there's all this interconnectedness together, trauma, anxiety, ADHD, autism, all of that kind of starts to weave itself, and it all becomes like a which came first, the chicken or the egg type thing, and they all just kind of connect into each other. And so like, do we know if a child was anxious, more anxious, and then that is displayed in maybe this hyperactivity, because that can also be anxiety. You know, so we think about withdrawal, but sometimes that kid that's super duper hyper and out of control, that's also wrapped up in those anxious feelings. So we can dive into it more if somebody has some like more questions around it, but they're all just, they kind of intertwine with each other.
And it's important to I think to just be aware when you're looking at your kiddo or yourself, to kind of ask yourself, what can I observe from their behavior? What is their behavior telling me? Because we all know that a child's behavior is always telling us something. And so oftentimes, even some of those things that they do that might be super annoying to you, if we get to the root of the issue, it might be anxiety that's causing them to do that thing, because that thing is the thing that helps them regulate or helps them deal with their anxiety. And so our challenge for you is to look at the kiddos in your life and go, what can I observe about their behavior today? What is their behavior trying to tell me? And what is my own behavior trying to tell me? Yeah. Where do I see anxiety in my own life? Where are some things that I might be doing that actually are because of anxiety, not just because I like to do them or because, they take place in my life, but what is the actual reason why I'm doing them? Especially if you see new patterns start to form in your life, over the last 9 months, if you have some new patterns that have formed, they could be as a result of the anxiety that you're facing.
Yeah. Any questions or anything like that before we jump in, since we've got this group, and I'm going to teach you a little bit more about what's going on in the brain, but anything that's popping up for anybody?
Yeah, so I was the one that was asking about anxiety and the different diagnoses or what they look like. And I guess part of my concern is if they are intertwined, it feels like we're being told from the professionals, because I work in a preschool. So the professionals that are coming up with these anxiety diagnoses are just basically saying, you need to back off. You just need to let them do whatever they're going to do. And when you have a child that's hyperactive or one that's not engaging because of his autism, that doesn't feel like the right thing to do.
Yeah. It's a challenge because, we want to create a safe space and hold a safe space for all of our kids, but also be able to resource them with tools to help them still engage in life. How do you give them those tools so that they're not disengaging completely, recognizing that, it might be an extra challenge for you to show up, but we know that you can still show up. And what does that look like? And that's some of the stuff that we, when we go into schools, is how do we help give the school, the whole environment, the community, a shared language so that we can talk about what am I feeling in my body and what are the tools that I can use to address that. So it's not going to be just the teachers, and it's not going to be just the students, and it's not going to be just the parents, but how do we all as a community be able to do that? And I think that actually is one of the most helpful things that we can do, is that education piece of this is actually what's going on inside your body. And I'm going to show you guys a hand model of the brain that you can teach. And we have a handout that we'll give to you guys that I put a link on there to a video that you can use with kids that explains this so that they can understand what's going on in my brain and start to use this language. And I'll give you some examples as I'm teaching it, kind of like how I've seen kids use it and how I've used it with some of the kiddos that I work with. So I'm going to use my hand. So this is like the brain stem. It goes up into the lower part of the brain, this downstairs brain is what we call it. And this is like the primal part of our brain. This is the part of the brain that is responsible for keeping us safe. So it's that's all it does. And so it's quick thinking, reactive. It's that, oh my gosh, I see a bear and I'm going to either run away at the fastest I've ever run away, or I'm going to fight, or, I'm going to freeze. I'm going to, not do anything. But it's that what helps us respond in those really intense situations. This part right here is the amygdala, and it's the emotional part of the brain. And it's for all our thinking and all our feeling. And it acts kind of as the gateway for this top part. And this top part is our prefrontal cortex. So it's this part right here. And it's the really logical thinking part of our brain. So why down here, this is really, really fast thinking. This part's a lot slower. So it's intaking information, processing it, and then making a decision. So when we've got this part online, it intakes information, it processes it, it makes a rational decision about what is going on, and then can act upon that. But what happens is that when this part, when it feels, or when our body senses danger or a threat, this part goes offline and we start responding with this quick thinking, a need to protect ourselves. And so this is great if we are in a situation where our lives are in danger. But what's happening is the brain all of a sudden is starting to sense, wait a minute, this feels like I might be in danger, whether I am or not. And it's flipping, and we're flipping our lids. And there are so many reasons why, and we could, go on and on and on. But if we just understand that a lot of adults, kids, teenagers are walking around with our lids flipped, literally, and we are responding from fight, flight, and freeze. And we see this in our behavior. We see this in fight, where there's a lot of aggression. There's a lot more instantaneous, like attack, that verbal attack, physical attack. So it's not always just like I'm going to punch you. You might see that with like a 4 or 5 year old, where they're like, I'm done, and they'll just punch a kid. Or a playmate or something, but we're seeing it also in our verbal attacks, even between adults. So we see fight, we see flight. I'm gonna, get away from here as fast as I can. I'm gonna run away. I'm gonna do nothing to avoid it. I don't want to be anywhere near it, so I'm gonna withdraw. Freeze is almost this numb. So numbing it out, I hear a lot of people come in and say, like, I just don't feel anything anymore. Like I just numb. And that oftentimes is their lid is flipped and they have numbed because it's just too much. They can't handle anything else. So what we want to do is help figure out ways that bring this rational thinking part of the brain back online. So all of us have triggers, things that cause us to flip our lids. So we thought we'd take a moment and just pause and think about, because like Jess was saying, all of our behavior is telling us something. So like, as you think about in your own life, are there things that cause you to flip your lid? So like, I know for me, the moment that I start to feel a sense of being out of control, my lid flips. And it flips with my kids when all of a sudden I'm like, I can't make you do what I want you to do. And so then I start to feel myself escalating. But it flips in my own life. Like when I have an experience where I'm like, I can't do anything to control this. So then I go off and I try to control everything else. And when that's not working, it gets really ugly in my life. So I know that control piece is a big thing. And I am starting to learn to pay attention to that in myself. So I'm wondering, as we think about it, like, do you guys think, I know this might be something that is a trigger for me?
And I think one of the interesting things to add on to that is, if you think of from a parenting point of view, it's that lid being flipped can often look like when you've got that kiddo and you can give them every consequence in the world and it does not matter. It's because their rational part of their brain is turned off. And so they flip their lid and then I flip my lid and then World War III happens and it's just ugly. And it's because neither of us are thinking rationally. And so it's important to kind of realize that as we work with kiddos and like Hannah said, other adults in our life, have we not seen many of them? The last 9 months, we've seen a lot of people flip their lids and do things that are kind of out of character. And oftentimes it's their instinctual reaction to something. It's not a purposeful reaction at times. So we're gonna have you all turn on your mics again and just share what's something that triggers you. I don't like not having choices. If you back me against a wall, I will flip my lid. I need to have choices at all time. That's I know that about me. So that's for sure something that flips my lid.
Mine is pressure, like test anxiety or passing an exam. I've been working on becoming a driver's training instructor, and I totally can do all the work. I just freak out at the test.
Yep.
With the instructor, only him.
Yeah.
Freeze, you know, go blank.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the kiddo who says, I studied,
Right.
and then they get to the test and they go, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Which then it escalates, because then you feel frustrated with yourself, because you're like, I know what I'm supposed to be doing and why isn't it happening? So then it escalates versus, and the cycle just continues.
Yeah, I passed, but you know, it was a struggle.
Mine's probably when I get overwhelmed with too much to do. And so I feel, I guess, backed against a wall of not being able to get everything done. And or too many people. I have a lot of family members with some pretty serious problems or health issues right now. And that overwhelms me because I'm not in control of it. There's nothing that I can do, but yet it affects me a lot.
Yeah.
And so as far as my granddaughters, because that's the children that my kids are grown, is when they're doing the distance learning, and it's really hard for them to do, and then it'll get towards the end of the day, and they tend to give a lot of schoolwork. She's in first grade, and literally 7 hours. It's ridiculous. And it's hard for her to do, and it makes me feel really bad that I have to make sure that the schoolwork gets done. And I don't think that it's right, you know. So I think it's too much for her, for a 6-year-old. And that causes me internally, that will make me flip inside.
Yeah.
And so because I feel that pressure, and their mom had basically abandoned them. And so I know that internally they have a lot of abandonment issues that they're dealing with as well. So it's trying to make sure that you feel, or that they feel, loved and not pressure. So with all of this additional pressure of, 4 hours of Zoom and then schoolwork is just too much.
So hard.
Mm-hmm. That makes me very anxious.
Yeah.
I had, when my son's in 7th grade now, but his 3rd grade elementary year was a complete and utter disaster. And I think partially it was just his developmental stage at that point. And I have never witnessed myself what the teachers said that they witnessed at school whenever whatever pressures there were there. But he would literally go out in the hallway and just like total catatonia. Like he would stand there, he would not respond to a teacher, he would not respond to the counselor, who he really liked and enjoyed her company, spent a lot of time with her. But just, I never saw him like that. So I don't really know what it looked like and what his person looked like. But when you said something about the freeze, just, I can't even process what's going on here. It just made me think of that, because that was horrific to even hear, let alone see anything like that something could bother him so greatly that he would just freeze and not do anything until we came to pick him up at the end of the day. It was nuts.
The body's real smart. And if it thinks we're in danger, it will automatically put us into fight, flight, or freeze. And it keeps us alive sometimes, it keeps us alive. And the problem that comes is when we don't need to be in fight, flight, or freeze. So it does its job so well. And then eventually that we don't need that anymore. And it's learning how to come out of that fight, flight, or freeze that so many of us get stuck in sometimes.
Yeah.
I have to do the calm out quite a bit. If anybody's done the that calm, that kind of helps me sometimes.
Anyone else? What else triggers you or your children that come to mind?
Confrontation is, I flee from that. It's difficult for me. That's what causes me anxiety. I get the, creepy feeling in the back of my neck, and just knowing that a confrontation is coming up.
Mm-hmm. You shut down because it's like that's the only way I know how to protect myself.
Right.
Yeah.
And avoid. So it's very much a flight kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. This week has been remarkably trigger. My brother died on Sunday, and it was a really tragic death at home. And his grandson, whom he lived with, is 11, and he's been on a suicide watch in Longview, waiting for a bed. And I realized that not working with the dog, COVID, and everything else that's going on that you just kind of pretend you're lobbing along through, I reach a point where it challenges. It's like, don't even challenge me.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be as easy as arguing over what are you gonna put in the mailbox. It's like, that's a challenge. I'd rather not do it. I just kind of have to just go, okay, we're gonna walk through this real slow.
Yeah. When you feel like when you were describing that, this picture came to mind of like, I've held this like big load and it's like wobbly, and you're going to put one thing on it and it's going to come crashing down. So like, don't put anything else on this because I just can't take anymore.
Yeah, I'm doing the best I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, don't put any more on there.
Yeah. And it could be the smallest little thing, but that's it. There's no more room.
No more room even for a mistake on the grocery list. Nothing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I think that we all kind of have a good idea of anxiety, and we've all experienced it in many different ways. So we thought we would kind of talk through, like, what do you do? Like, what are some things that can help start to bring that lid back online? And we wanted to, again, address it with kids and adults, and kind of, I think you can apply a lot of these things intermixed, for sure, but to have some kind of age specific things to help with that. So so I'm going to address the kiddos and stuff. But so I think one of the things that as a parent is recognizing sometimes kids' behavior feels really random. And we're like, oh my gosh, like they just seem like they're always like, blowing up all the time, and I can't figure it out, and sometimes it's fine if they eat the vegetables at dinner, and other times it's not okay, and I can't figure out what's going on here. And there usually is some sort of pattern. So I think one of the things that I know myself as a parent, and just in the work that I do with parents, is that recognizing that my kid's behavior is not there to annoy me. It's actually there to communicate with me. And so like, if I can start to pay attention to it, and they're usually communicating one of two things. They are either communicating that they have a need that is not being met, or they are lacking a skill. And sometimes that lacking a skill is they may have learned the skill, but they're not able to access that skill and use it in that moment. So it's not necessarily like, sometimes they're like, well, I taught them how to do that. Yeah, you probably have, but for whatever reason, usually they're here, their lid is flipped, and they're just not able to access that skill in that moment. But if we can look back and we can say, okay, their behavior is telling me something. Sometimes I'll notice like, man, my kid flips their lid when they get home from school. And if I ask them what they ate for lunch, they'll be like, oh, I was too distracted and I didn't eat my lunch. You have an unmet need. You don't have food in your stomach. And so you're not functioning well right now. And so if I can start to pay attention, a couple of weeks ago in our house, both my kids, I've got middle schoolers, and they were like going at it, and I had nothing in me. And I was like, what is going on? It was about 5 o'clock at night. Come to find out, all of us had forgotten to eat lunch. And I was like, oh, we all need to eat, and then life will be much better in this household. And it was. And so like just recognizing that, oh, this behavior, instead of letting it escalate and me getting mad that they weren't doing what I was asking them to do, we stopped, ate dinner, and then everything happened just as it should have after that. So pay attention to that. And then the second thing is teach the kids the hand model of the brain. Because I will have one of my kids, and I'll teach some of my kiddos this, and they will say, oh, I'm going to flip my lid, or I flipped my lid right now and I need to go take a break. So start like teaching them what is going on in their bodies. It gives them maybe a little bit more sense of a control of what is happening, and then they don't feel so out of control. Like I said, I'm going to send you a handout that has some more of that information on it. But start teaching them that, and then get their bodies moving. Anxiety, when we go into fight, flight, and freeze, our bodies naturally release energy to equip us to do whatever it is. And if that energy does not get used up, it stays stored in our body. Hence, we see hyperactive behavior, distraction, all of that, because that energy is still in the body. So we want to use that energy to help regulate. So, and every kid has their own little like thing that, so I can't say, go have your kid do this for this amount of time and prescribe it and have it work. You've got to pay attention. So some kids, it's spinning. You'll have kids that, and you think about what is it that they're attracted to if they're playing on a playground. Some kids, it's getting them to hang upside down off the monkey bars. Some kids, it's pressure. So like even, they're constantly trying to squeeze themselves into tight spaces, or you notice that like if you lay something heavy on them, that you will feel this immediate like, so getting our kids out, and that has changed so dramatically with the way school is for a lot of kids right now. And so they're not getting their normal PE classes. They're not having their recess breaks. So like, how do you get kids out there and moving their bodies? And that will really help to release that anxiety and to help regulate them. The other thing that if you get out there and move with them, a lot of times that time of play will help bring connection again and reestablish connection. And connection is a really important piece in regulation. So oftentimes when we're dysregulated, it causes disconnection in our important relationships. So finding times where you're reconnecting through play will help bring more relationship. And a lot of times kids can talk to you better that way. So
essentially it's a lot of the same things, but just at an adult level. One of the first things that Hannah said was recognize patterns. So we can look at our kids and recognize patterns in our kids, and we can look at ourselves and recognize patterns in ourselves that clue us into our own anxiety. And so that can be as easy as looking at how much screen time you have. I mean, we all have a phone, right? And it tells us how much time we spend on there. And I know when I have more anxiety, that screen time number goes up, right? Because that's where I go to kind of escape my anxiety. So it's looking at our own patterns and maybe having a conversation with a partner or a close friend to say, where, if I can't see my own patterns, what do you notice in me that allows you to know that I'm not okay or that I have anxiety? there, and then asking that same question: what is that need that needs to be met? What are some things I need to shift around to take care of myself? Because we don't have a parent that's taking care of us, we are taking care of ourselves. And so how do we do that better when we notice some of those patterns in ourselves coming up? Very much this idea of echoing what Hannah said, this idea that when we go into fight, flight, or freeze, we have energy that's released into our body. And as adults, because of life and the expectations that are on us, oftentimes we have this great burst of energy, so this adrenaline, because when our body goes into fight, flight, or freeze, it's not just our brain that goes offline. That sends signals to the rest of our body that says we're in alert. And so all of your systems are in high alert. And if we don't take care of that as an adult, especially, it can get kind of stuck in us and a little bit frozen. And then we add the next layer and the next layer and the next layer. And then I work with a lot of clients who just are completely numb. They don't feel hardly anything because they haven't figured out how to release that energy. And so really the goal would be to kind of go through the cycle of I'm triggered, my body's released energy, I take that energy out somewhere, it gets out somehow so that I can go back to neutral. What we do as a society is we say, I'm triggered, whatever, I'm fine. I'm triggered, whatever, I'm fine. I don't have time, I don't, whatever, I'm fine. You're not, because even if you think you're fine, your body is saying, your body is going, I am stuck in fight, flight, or freeze. And your brain doesn't fully come back online and your body systems don't fully come back online until that energy is released. So that looks different for every person. That could be going for a run. That could be taking a hot shower. That could be talking to a good friend. That could be whatever it looks like for you to release that energy. Sometimes for people, it's doing something that's really creative, but we've got to get rid of that stuff that's in our body, because if not, we're going to see the physical symptoms in our life and in the lives of the people that we love, because all that energy is stuck inside of us. Yeah. Another great thing that we do, I mean, I think the vocabulary is so important. We in my household, we talk about, I say to my kids, your lid is flipped. We can have a conversation when it's back on, because we've had that, they know what that means. But it's the same for me. I can say to my kids, my lid is flipped right now. So if you come at me right now, it's not going to be good. I'm going to need a little time for me to put my lid back on. And they understand that and give me the space that I need to calm myself back down. One of the greatest things you can do to put your lid back on is to use your 5 senses. So when your lid is flipped, if you start paying attention to your 5 senses, your body has to start paying attention to itself, and your lid will slowly come back online. And the biggest mistake I made was like trying to implement that when my lid was flipped and realizing I have to actually practice those things ahead of time so that I have those tools accessible to me and my children, so that when I need them, they are there. And so I think you can do a simple thing where you look around and go, what's 5 things I see? What's 4 things I hear? What's 3 things I smell? What's 2 things I taste? What's 1 thing I feel? For me, it works really well if we just like heavily trigger 1 or 2 of the senses. And so sometimes it's figuring out what that is. It's wrapping up in a cozy blanket, a soft blanket. It's lighting your favorite candle. It's drinking a really cold glass of water. It's throwing an Altoid in my mouth or in my kiddo's mouth, who's literally melting down. And I can say to them, you need to put your lid on, and they're still melting down. Sometimes if I just throw something in their mouth real easily, like it's enough for their body to go, whoa. And then we can see the lid start to come back on. So it's putting those things in place ahead of time and really noticing like, what are the things that calm me down, and how do I begin to implement those things when I feel my lid getting flipped. I think the other thing is just being aware of what it feels like to be triggered, right? Our body tells us that. So it can be like where it's asking that question, like, where do I feel that anxiety, so that I include in to when my lid is about to be flipped. So it's like, do I feel it in my chest? Do I get a really tight neck? Do I get nauseous? Like, what are those things that are going to clue me in to something's offline here or off kilter here, and I need to stop and take care of myself. You know, I think it's also just giving ourselves the grace to know that it's never going to be, you can do all the right things, and sometimes we're just going to melt down because we're human. And so it's giving ourselves that grace and giving our kids that grace to realize, like, sometimes, and especially with our kiddos, you know, their brain is not fully developed till they get to their 20s. So we can work at that, putting that lid on, but it's not a fully developed lid until they're in their 20s. But giving ourselves that grace and not, it's not a perfectionist thing. It's where, how are we doing today? Did we take a step forward? Sometimes we take a step back, but we get up and we keep moving forward, and having those conversations. It's it's self-care. It's getting enough, it's doing the things that give you life. It's getting enough sleep. It's walking your dog. It's calling a friend. It's the things that you are important for us to stay healthy, to deal with our anxiety, is figuring out what gives you life, and using those tools as you need to.
Can I ask a question about that?
Please do.
Just going back to my granddaughters with the distance learning, or just them in life in general. I think sometimes when there's like a lot that has to be done, and it could be getting ready for dance or completing all of the schoolwork. When we've gone through different tools and they've kind of know, I need to take a break, and we try to, they do the trampoline or we run or bike and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes they'll milk it out, and they've learned, I need to take some time for myself because I'm feeling like not right, or and so I've kind of taught them, and we've worked on that really well, but there's a little bit of going, oh no, you don't. You're okay, you really have to get this done, you've got 2 more hours. And what is like that balance of self-care, which I think is totally appropriate, and maybe you just have to kind of gut it up a little bit, and we got to get this done because we really do need to go, or their dad's coming to pick them up, or whatever the issue is, because this goes on at home too. I'm kind of using examples that I see here.
One of the things that we want to help to teach our kids is like this sense of autonomy. And so part of that might be like giving them some, what are the ages of your grandkids? I think you said a first grader and
TK, so 6 and 5, almost 7.
Okay. So
they're real good about trying to breathe deeply, or knowing how important nature is. I think that sometimes being outside, going for walks are good.
Yeah. So bringing in the power of choice. And so like in that, I would say sometimes, saying like, hey, like we have, it sounds like you are saying you need to have a break. So you could choose to do that for 3 minutes or 5 minutes. Which one do you think will help you? And like giving them, so they still have a power of choice. They're still getting to do the thing, but you're putting a time limit on it. So that they're not doing it. So it could be a timer. It could be like, why don't you pick a song? And when the song is done, then we'll come back to the, the thing, to whatever you're working on, but giving them some sort of, so that it's not unending.
Right, that's what I'm finding, because I think it's great that they really, especially the older one, the younger one, she's okay, but she's trying to learn how to get through this. She had to give up softball. It's been very hard on her.
Right, they're learning.
Girl, and to be sitting on the computer, it's been hard.
Yeah, so they need to know, but they also need to know, how do I get myself to come back? So like, I think that's one of the challenges, is that we teach kids like this grounding. So we teach them like, okay, you're going to engage your 5 senses, or, go get a drink of water. Then we also get to teach that part of then, okay, great, your lid's back online. How do you come back and finish the task that, that kind of brought that in the first place? Sometimes with kids, what I'm noticing with this online work is that it feels unending, and they're having a hard time managing the to-dos. So like I'm noticing in my own kiddos that they're flipping their lids a lot faster when they don't, and they'll get fixated on something. So like I had one come in the other day, and he was fixated on one portion of the assignment, and he like, I can't do this. No, he's like, and when I finally read it and we got him back online, I said, Betty, you missed the rest of the sentence. And so like we had to like, how do we get regulated? Okay, now let's come back. And now that you're regulated, let's try reading that again. So we're teaching that life skill. So yeah, I think adding a timer or like a song or something like that that helps them re-engage will really help.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. I've tried the timer, but honestly, right now we have so many timers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like a song, yeah, like reminders, but yeah, like a, you know,
because
like,
they have different classes, you know. So
Yeah.
Alexa's going off. Hi, it's almost time to get ready for gym. Have fun. I mean, I've tried it all different ways. She tells jokes, everything. But I like the song. Like they would probably respond really well to having the song, or the 3 to 5 minutes would be really helpful.
What other questions do you guys have for us? We're going to kind of just open this time up to you and answer anything you have.
As best we can.
As best we can. Whether it be around learning or school or in your homes, whatever we can do.
Well, I want to thank you, but my husband's been waiting for his dinner all this time. So love you all, appreciate everything. And I'm going to sign off with my wet hair and my pajamas.
Thanks for joining us. It was nice to meet you.
Hi, Joe.
Take care, everybody.
You too.
I think I appreciate the 5 senses. Like something somewhat tangible, you know, that you can focus on that might pull away from the crises mind.
Yeah.
And feel like a tool that's when people are looking for tools.
Yeah. And something I was going to jump in with that is sometimes when a kid's lid is flipped, you know, and they're like running around crazy and not saying, oh, we're going to help get you back online and regulated, just saying like, oh, man, I wonder what some things that we spy right now. Like I see, you know, like the plant.
Right. Or did you hear the fire truck go by?
Right. So yeah. So like
asking the questions to start triggering the senses.
Yeah. And
so
then all of a sudden they will like start, oh yeah, I hear that. No, do you hear anything else? Like, and not making it like, okay. I think sometimes we get in this, like, I have to say that this is, we're going to be regulating right now. No, you just have to, you know, like Jess said, give them a cup of cold water. Won't tell them necessarily. And then maybe later on, once you're talking about it, being like, hey, did you notice what happened when you had that cup of cold water? Or
sometimes I just make my kids go take a shower. Go take a shower. Ah, you smell, go take a shower. And really they just need to calm down. But they're already past that point. And if I can get them in the hot shower, they're a different person when they walk out.
Yeah. Yeah. We're at 15, we're kind of past the whole, like, I can say in advance, oh, I heard these were great skills. And that might be taken into, but yeah, in the moment, I don't touch it.
Oh yeah, no. That gets worse.
Another one that's been helpful for a lot of the kiddos I work with who struggle with test anxiety is the sense of smell is a really big one. And so they have, if you're a girl, I don't know if a guy would go for it, but they have these necklaces on Etsy that you can actually put drops of essential oil in. And so I encourage them they can wear them. And then when they go to take a test, they can pick it up and just take a deep breath. And for so many of them, it calms them down enough right before they're going to take a test, or they throw a piece of gum in their mouth right before they're going to take a test, or have a snack. And it's just little things that are helpful, especially when they know they're coming up to something that's going to be anxiety provoking. An adult as well, when you're, before you go into a public speaking, we all have a certain level of anxiety usually, and prepping our bodies to be okay for that.
That's some great tips. I definitely with my younger, with both my daughters, but one of them, the younger one, once we started learning some tools, then she would say, okay, I'm anxious about this, but I have this plan if this goes bad. Or like she would sort of come up with a plan B or some strategies to help her. I don't know. It's really fun when I saw them learning and adapting. So that scented necklace thing is brilliant. I'm going to get some of those right now.
They're great. Also, like I know with my daughter, sometimes like we've tried everything and I'm like, great. let's go do yoga.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, like,
oh yeah.
And sometimes she doesn't want to do it by herself, but we do it together. And that's enough for her. Like that, it has been as she has grown and changed because her needs change and now she's a teenager. So the things that worked for her when she was younger don't always work the same now. But that's one of the things that, and now she's learned, like, oh, I feel really stressed out. I'm going to go do 10 minutes of yoga. Awesome.
Yeah. Yoga, hot baths with Epsom salts and scents and stuff like that has helped a lot.
What scents do your kiddos like as far as the
lavender?
I would let them choose. I mean, we talk about like with candles and stuff, like, you know, if that's something that helps you, like choose the one you like. So if you have some laying around or you want to take them someplace and have them, you know, we all have different smells. I think we are comforting. Some smells, you know, kind of get us rejuvenated. But it's different for each kiddo. So I would, you know, sometimes it's the smell of, you know, cookies baking or whatever, you know, vanilla or whatever it is, it's going to help calm them. They usually know.
Cool.
Any other questions for us?
We do have a handout that we'd love to pass on to you guys. So if you want to put your email, if you'd like to get that handout, you can put your email in the chat and we'll capture it and get that sent to you. And if you're interested in more tools or anything like that, we've got a Facebook group that we put daily just tips and encouragement. And all we jump on Thursdays and just kind of chat. You get to hear a little conversation between us and stuff around just a lot of things like we've been talking about tonight. And then we've got some online classes too that offer some more tools around big emotions and just parenting and all of them are a lot of what you've seen here with more detail where we're going to give you some teaching and then some just really practical tools that you guys can start using today because we don't want to make it overwhelming. It doesn't have to be these really big things. It can be really simple things that can make really big differences.
Yeah. We also go into schools and support the social and emotional health of school by supporting parents, teachers, and students. It's one thing to teach a kid the curriculum, but it's another thing to support the entire school in the process. So if you know of somebody that'd be interested in that, we would be certainly happy to come in and serve them. It's really our heart's desire to support families any way that we can. So our website is actionparenting.org. Do you want to type that in, Hannah?
Yep.
If you guys want more information. And we're here. We appreciate your heart for your kiddos and the people in your life. And it's such an important time to address social and emotional health right now.
Thank you.
Good information. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Am I unmuted? Oh, I am. Yeah. Sometimes I can carry on conversations and just nobody's like, you know. So I'm glad we were able to fit this in. You know, our first attempt at a live version of this sort of, you know, fell by the wayside, but I appreciate you guys sticking with us to do something that that I felt was really important and just sort of a building block, you know, with all these additional tools and chats that you guys were mentioning in this group. You know, we've got kids of all different ages that we deal with and that we're parenting or, you know, that we see on a regular basis. And it's important to get those cues and figure out what's going on in their lives and how we can help and how we control our own lids, you know, in the process. So, I mean, what an apropos visual picture, flipping your lid. I mean, if that has not just made me giggle this whole time, because it's so true. It's so true. So anyway, well, Hannah and Jessi, thank you so much. And Lynn, I don't know if you guys all know this, but Miss Jessi Sigander is Lynn's daughter. So yes.
Yep.
Yes. So what was that, Lynn?
That's the child that flipped my lid. I call her my wild child, and she has done such amazing things. I'm so proud of both she and Hannah. What amazing godly women they are. So thank you both so much. I love you so much and learned a lot. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Thank you.
Good. And again, they put their email on there and their website. So if you you have any questions, let's, move forward and see what else we can learn in the next little bit. Alrighty?
Yeah. If you guys have any questions.
Thank you, Pam, so much.
Yes.
Thank
Thank you.
What was it?
Thank
Hey,
you.
Hannah, what was that? I'm sorry, I missed what you were saying.
Oh, I just said, if you guys have anything that, afterwards something comes up, feel free to reach out. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thanks so
Awesome.
much.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Bye, ladies. Bye, Mar.
Bye, Cam. Bye, Lynn. Bye, ladies.
Good night, John boy. No,
That's right.
thank you again.
Yes.
Thank you, Ken, for being the motivator behind all this, love. I appreciate it so
Well,
much.
if I've learned nothing about myself, I'm a good doer.
You are a good doer. You guys did a wonderful